Good evening. I was given the presentation for immigration law. Here are quick facts about my case. Johan, who is a South African male, married Carla, an Italian and Swiss national female. They married in Monaco. They have 2 children, which one needs sufficient care due to his autism. They both are under 2 years old, and she just found out she has one on the way, and she's about 6 weeks pregnant. They both reside in Italy with their children. They both have educations and work experience. He owns his own gym where he is paid mainly in cash, and he's been known to say that he doesn't pay his taxes or, quote, pay the tax man. He's also a veteran from the South African Armed Services. He ended up in Italy because he was on a military-sponsored trip. He ended up getting into a brawl which landed him 3 days detention and a €500 fine. He ended up staying in Italy because he met Carla, and therefore he married her, and we are where we are today. Carla is a part-time waitress for one of her parents' many restaurants. They own 3 restaurants, and they are 4th-generation plantation farmers. They both have good financial background, where Johan has saved approximately €72,000. That translates into $77,175.38 in US dollars. Carla has 25% stake in her family's several restaurants. Carla used to be a ballet dancer who detrimentally injured her ankle and can't dance, and she never will be able to dance as well as she used to be due to her injury, but that does not preclude her from being able to coach or teach in the future. Johan has an uncle Brando who lives in Palm Harbor. He's been there for 22 years with his wife, who is a natural-born citizen of the United States. He's been asking Johan to move to the U.S. Carla is hesitant that moving from their lavish lifestyle in Italy would not be so lavish in Palm Harbor. Johan wants to come over to visit Uncle Brando with his wife Carla and explore some real estate, open a local bank account, apply for Social Security numbers for him and Carla, as well as looking for schools for the kids. They are planning on staying for approximately 3 weeks. Uncle Brando has mentioned to Johan that he has a great real estate connection and was willing to put up a down payment on a house if he can secure financial aid for the rest. So some quick questions that came to my mind. There's many avenues to go on with this case, so I tried to pull out as many as I could that would fit into the time frame of this presentation. So first I thought of the passports. Well, to travel you have to have valid passports, and we know that Johan and Carla both travel because Johan came from South Africa and they traveled to Morocco to get married. Now, my first thought was, is their passports valid? And if they're not, then they need to be renewed. So they would use the form DS-82 to renew their passports. That is the first page of 12 pages of this form. Now they have 2 children. Both of their children will need a passport, and because they're under the age of 2, I went on the assumption that they do not have passports. So they would use the form DS-11, which would be this form. This is also approximately 12 pages long. The time frame for these passports and the renewal of them can take anywhere from an expedited 6 weeks to 6 months. Do their jobs and the fact that they have steady income will be enough to live off of the United States? Well, doing some research, I saw for Palm Harbor in the year 2015, the median income for a household was $45,404. So I think Carla would be rest assured that if her husband is making $75,000 in U.S. currency, that she would be fine living with a median income of $45,000. Does Johan, since he is paid mainly in cash, and Carla being a waitress and a formal dancer, have documentation to show that his or her income is a steady support for his family? Will either Johan's master degree in biochemistry and Carla's education help them establish a foundation here in the United States if they chose to take this path? The answer is maybe. Depending on how Johan and Carla fill out the temporary visas would depend on the status. For example, an H-1B is a person in a special occupation that can handle projects administered by the Department of Defense. This is a form I could not find to show you an example of. Since Johan has his master's in a relatively particular field, it is possible for him to obtain a specialty job in his biochemistry field. Another way this could be with Carla's ability to dance. Even though she cannot dance as well as she used to, or at all, she could apply for a P3 form. I also could not find this form on the internet, and therefore I'll explain it. It allows a person to come to teach or coach under a variety of things, to include music and theater as well as artistic performance. So those are a couple of other different ways, as long as their passports are good, that they could come over to the United States and complete residency. There is a clause. Generally, a citizen of a foreign country who wishes to enter the United States must first obtain a visa, either a non-immigrant visa for temporary stay or an immigrant visa for permanent residency. Temporary worker visas are for persons who want to enter the United States for employment lasting a fixed period and are not considered permanent or indefinite. Each of these visas required a prospective employer at the first file a petition with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. An approved petition is required to apply for a work visa. So if Johan and Carla wanted to come over with their particular areas of studies, they could do this for a particular amount of time, and the fee would be $700 per application. Here's an idea of what an immigration green card looks like. Another question I thought of was, can Uncle Brando sponsor them? The answer actually is yes. An I-30 petition for alien relative, you must agree to be the financial sponsor and file an affidavit of support when the time comes for the actual immigration. If you do not meet the financial qualifications at the time, you still must file the form I-864. It's called an affidavit of support. You're accepting responsibility, but you and your relative also must find other individuals who meet the requirements and are willing to make this commitment by filing affidavits of support. This helps immigrants to not be able to take advantage of our government systems like food stamps, housing, etc. This fee for the sponsorship for 2 adults and 2 kids is $535 a person, totaling $2,140, which is non-refundable. So there's a potential third option as well for Carla and Johan to come to the United States. While they're in the United States, how can Johan and Carla get a bank account if they are immigrants? Can they get a bank account? The answer is yes. Most banks will allow you to open an account with a passport if your name and picture and signature are on it. Can the kids get registered for school with just a passport? Yes. Parents need to complete registration just like every other parent and visit the assigned school and deliver the required documents. A birth certificate or other proof of identity such as a passport, proof of residency so they could use Uncle Brando's residence if they needed to. They don't need a social security number. They do need to be able to show immunizations from a doctor and a physical examination within the last 12 months. So it is possible they can go to school here with just a passport. Can Johan and Carla obtain social security numbers? The answer is a very complicated answer for this presentation. You can get a social security number, and out of 10 applications, 8 are very complicated, but if you're one of the 2 that goes smoothly, it takes about 10 days, and then you can apply after you've been in the country for 10 days, you can apply for a number. Here is the breakdown of the fees that it would take on whichever way they decide to come over. Normally, the time frame is 6 months to 10 years, but every case is different. So that's the pros and you got to weigh the pros and cons on what's better for them. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for listening.